Welcome to the Legalpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Sager, and I'm dedicated to covering common legal issues for small business owners and just how some of the world's most elite entrepreneurs have handled legal issues themselves. In true attorney fashion, the information in this episode is not legal advice. This is for informational purposes only, and you should always consult with your attorney before implementing any of the information. Now, on to the show. Hey there, and welcome to the very first bonus episode of the Legalpreneur Podcast. So I'm recording this on June 2nd, which is the day that a court awarded Carole Baskin Joe Exotic's Oklahoma Zoo. I know if any of you have been watching Netflix at all during the COVID pandemic, then you probably watched Tiger King. And this is the crazy story about Joe Exotic, who likes to call himself the Tiger King. And essentially his antagonist, Carole Baskin, who rescues cats. She also is famously known for her, "Hey, all you cool cats and kittens," her little intro to her videos. Both of them have a significant following. They're both very well known within the tiger community across the United States and worldwide. Well, I'm providing this episode because it's very interesting how this all rolled out. And as you know, I am an intellectual property attorney, so I cover trademarks, copyrights, and all of this stems from trademarks and copyrights. So I am going to be sharing with you the ins and outs of this actual case and how it came to be what it is today. So if you are currently in any intellectual property trouble, or if you think it'll never affect you, guess what? Here is a little lesson for all of you. It can affect any of you, and you could absolutely lose everything that you own or previously owned. So let me actually take it back to the beginning. So Carole Baskin has a judgment out for $1 million against Joe Exotic. Joe Exotic does not have $1 million to pay that judgment, so Carole Baskin has been attempting to recover that judgment however she can. If you've heard any episode about protecting your personal assets from your business assets, you'll know that has to do with an LLC or a corporation. But if you are an LLC, a limited liability company, or a corporation, but you don't follow the requirements in order to get that protection to keep your personal and business assets separate, if you don't follow those requirements, you can lose that protection. And essentially that's what's happened here, because Carole Baskin has the $1 million judgment. Joe Exotic does not have money to pay. He's in federal prison. So she's seeking anything that he owns to pay the judgment. Well, Joe Exotic had a zoo in Oklahoma, but if you remember in the show Tiger King, something was mentioned about how he transferred the ownership of the zoo to his mom. And you may think, oh, he transferred it to his mom. Actually, the mom owns the zoo, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Today, the court ruled that was a fraudulent transfer, basically stating the whole purpose was to avoid Carole Baskin or any other creditor to get their hands on the zoo and any value that the zoo has. Well, because the judge ruled that, Carole Baskin is now getting Joe Exotic's zoo. Oh man. I wonder what Joe Exotic is thinking right now, sitting in his lonely federal prison cell. I know it's not a good day for him, but I'm going to still unwind and untangle this whole situation because there's another plot twist. Another plot twist, because the exact thing that Joe Exotic got sued for by Carole Baskin did the exact same thing. I'm not lying to you. Let me explain all of this. So hopefully you all remember Doc Antle. He runs another zoo, exotic cats, and all of his girlfriends help him run the zoo. I hope you remember him. Well, Carole Baskin actually bought the domain name docantle.com, and she purchased it for the sole purpose of redirecting it to her website, 911animalabuse.com. Well, this is trademark infringement, 100% not okay, because she did not have a legitimate purpose for using that domain name. But Doc Antle didn't actually sue for trademark infringement. He brought what's called a UDRP claim, UDRP, with WIPO, which is World Intellectual Property Organization. And essentially that just deals with domain names. And if you can prove your case, then they take away the domain name and give it to the rightful party. He won that case, but because it wasn't an actual trademark infringement suit in the US, he couldn't get damages. And that's why Carole Baskin didn't have to pay Doc Antle damages for trademark infringement. So what Joe Exotic did was actually the same exact thing Carole Baskin did. Carole Baskin just went about it a different way than Doc Antle and actually sued for damages for trademark infringement. So what exactly did Joe Exotic do? So Carole's company is Big Cat Rescue. Joe Exotic started Big Cat Rescue Entertainment to have a travel Big Cat and Magic show. Well, he specifically tried to use Google AdWords, all the Google stuff, to get the clicks for Carole Baskin's Big Cat Rescue and basically take that traffic away from her and have it coming towards him and his Big Cat Rescue Entertainment. He was successful, and that is why Carole Baskin actually sued him for trademark infringement. But this is not the only lawsuit. So, number one, she sued for trademark infringement for Big Cat Rescue Entertainment, and she owned Big Cat Rescue. Well, for the other lawsuit, Carole Baskin sued for copyright infringement for, I think it was 6 photos that Joe Exotic used in one of his YouTube videos. So he took her photos that she took. So remember, the person that takes the photos is the copyright owner. Well, because he took those exact photos that she took and put them in his video, that is copyright infringement. So she sued for trademark infringement and copyright infringement. Now, the cases never actually went to a jury. They actually settled the lawsuit. And ultimately, who would have won? I don't know. I'm not the jury. But online, you can submit a DMCA takedown notice, which I know I've talked about before. It's the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It allows essentially a very efficient process to get copyrighted works removed, unauthorized copyrighted works removed from the internet. Carole Baskin submitted those to YouTube. And when you make these claims, you're actually submitting them under penalty of perjury. Once that claim is submitted, you can then submit a counter notice which says, hey, these aren't actually copyright infringement. However, Joe Exotic made that claim, but he most likely knew that it was copyright infringement because he didn't take the photos. So essentially, Joe Exotic let his pride get the best of him. And if he would have just gone about, a few of these things a different way, then there really would not have been a claim on the part of Carole Baskin. Now, again, it never actually went to a jury because they settled the claim. And Carole, she essentially could have she did wipe him clean with attorney fees because she created a fund for, she had volunteers and online supporters who donated thousands and thousands to help her fight Joe Exotic. Joe Exotic did not have such help. So that's why Carole Baskin she essentially cornered him and made him settle. And the settlement was for, number one, damages of $653,000, attorney fees of $300,000, and then $75,000 for the copyright violations, and he agreed to never use the Big Cat Rescue mark or any other confusingly similar mark ever again. Now, because of that settlement, Exotic filed for bankruptcy in March 2013. And I'm guessing this is about the time that he transferred the zoo to his mother. And because of that transfer, which is deemed to be fraudulent, because at the time it wasn't in his name, there was nothing else that Carole Baskin could get. So Joe Exotic thought he was being clever by, hey, there's no assets in my name. She can't recover anything. Well, guess what, Joe Exotic? You made a fraudulent transfer, so now Carole Baskin gets her hands on what you created. And just to be clear, Carole Baskin is not getting the farm that Joe's partner, Jeff, the new zoo, she's not getting her hands on the new zoo. It's the old zoo, the original zoo of Joe Exotic. That's what she's getting her hands on, which really isn't being used for much now. I know Jeff has stated that he is working solely on the new project, so that has nothing to do with this matter at hand. But I bring all of this to you to untie the entanglement of Tiger King, to explain why Carole Baskin is getting her hands on Joe Exotic's zoo, and how this all relates to intellectual property, and why you should not infringe on anybody's trademark, not infringe on anybody's copyright, because ultimately the intellectual property owner could come and take your zoo or your house or your car or whatever you own. So make sure you're very, very wary of trademarks, copyrights. Steer clear of any infringement. Always take your own photos. Come up with unique names. And like I stated, so the settlement agreement, the original settlement agreement, Joe Exotic agreed not to use the Big Cat Rescue name or anything confusingly similar. That was stated because trademark infringement occurs not when it's just the same exact name, but anything similar enough that it's likely to cause confusion with consumers. Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode. I would love, love, love if you could help me get the word out and share this with your friends, share it and tag somebody on social media. Any of your Tiger King fans, please, please, please share the heck out of this. I would greatly appreciate you. Alrighty, see you guys. If you found this information helpful, I would be so grateful if you could share it with a fellow business owner. And it doesn't cost anything to rate, review, or subscribe to the show. Your support helps me reach more listeners, which allows me to support more business owners in their entrepreneurial journey. I'll see you next episode.